Okay. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I have a flag.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay.
I'm glad we sound much better when we're in person.
Yes. Everyone, please mute your cell phones. And Ms. Domingo, if you would call the roll.
Councilmember Clark, Reed. Here. Beth,
Here,
Lawler,
Here.
Spicer, Williamson,
Here.
and Mayor Atchison.
Here. Okay, so it looks like Councilwoman Clark and Councilwoman Spicer, and we know that Councilwoman Spicer is on her way. So, okay, we have one item for discussion during this study session, which is the purpose is the city manager's 6-month performance review. It's just slightly over 6 months, and I appreciate everybody getting their evaluations turned in. I'm gonna, let's see here. So the purpose tonight is to make sure we're all on the same page, to give Mr. McCleary to give you some feedback on the areas that we believe that you need to have some, make some changes, and recognize the items that seem to be going okay. The overall rating, everyone should have a copy of it in the package. Rolled all that up and averaged everyone's marks. And the overall average was 2.9, which is a little less than generally acceptable, but in the ballpark. As if you've had a chance to go through it and familiarize yourself with the evaluations and the comments and whatnot, Mr. McCleary.
I have, Your Honor.
Okay. And I should ask you before we go any further, do you have any desire to go into closed session at this point?
I do not.
Thank you. Okay. Of note, there are 18 different attributes, one of which was the assigned goals. And 9 of the 18, which is fit half, were rated 3.0 or above, which is satisfactory. And half or 9 of the 18 were marked at 2.9 or below. So that's where we are with this. I put together 2 additional documents with, I'll call it analysis, but basically just to address the 9 that were 3.0 or above, and then a separate document for areas for improvement that addressed the 9 aspects that were rated below 3.0. And then the comments and things that are in there were on the city manager's strengths. Essentially all I did is I went through every one of the 7 evaluations and extracted all of the positive comments that were included. And I think we ended up with 3 pages, 2.5 pages, something like that. So those are, and they're attributed to who made those comments, put those in the evaluation. So pulled those out so we'd all be aware of those. And what I would like to get the most out of this session tonight is to focus on the areas where we think improvement is required and give you the feedback. And again, for those things, I took comments out of the individual council members' evaluations that pertained to that rating mark, and where there was specific constructive feedback provided, I reworded that into a recommended action, things that could be done. So it's action oriented. However, I may have misinterpreted something from one of the council members. So if you read something and that's not what I meant, then please clarify that. At the end of this evening, I want us all to be on the same page where we're headed. I'm going to ask you, Mr. McCleary, to give council feedback on what we can do differently to help you be successful. And we're obviously giving you feedback both in writing and then tonight verbally to help you be more successful, because we need you to be successful so that the city's successful, that we all win. Okay, so before I go any further, I'm going to open it up. Mr. McCleary, if you want to say anything at this point.
Your Honor, just before the council begins, I just want to express my appreciation to you, Mayor, for all of your hard work in putting this all together, especially the summary reports that you provided, which I think are very helpful. And I look forward to hearing from the council.
That's the least I could do, because we are all on the same team. And I think every single one of us realizes that the pandemic was completely unexpected, but what's going to come out of this is a very steep path ahead of us, and many, many challenges. And so we're all going to need to be pulling together in unison. So I'll open it up for comments by council members. Wave your hand, or I'll just go around and ask, since I can't see everybody. We'll start with precinct 1. Is Councilwoman Clark on? Okay. Precinct 2, Councilwoman Reed.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Do you have any? Go ahead.
I agree with you, Dave, that we're just trying to get together so that when all of this is over, we're all working hard at the same thing. Doing things are very, very hard for me, because you get to where you like a person, and I think that, Darwin, that you're really, really great. But then when you see things that could be changed and done differently, that's part of your job, to speak up and say that too. And you saw probably the things that I commented on there, but I would just like to see some changes, just a little bit stronger leadership, and the people that I'm talking to in the public. In fact, I just had a talk with a lady, was it yesterday, day before yesterday, that was asking about the city manager, and so I said to her, why don't you make an appointment and come and talk with him, because the people are still saying we never see him. And so that's something I'm hoping that once you get all your people in place and everything, it'll free you up with a little more time to get out. And when the weather gets nice to where you can walk downtown, maybe take a lunchtime and walk through town and kind of introduce yourself to people as you go through. Because I really think that would make things a lot better. And then there are some people who are never going to put themselves in City Hall at a council meeting, but they'll want to ask what's going on. And I think that, if we had some town hall meetings to where people would get a chance to see you and see that you are a very nice person, and, but you're very business minded. And so we want to kind of get you not out of being business minded, but out to where other people can see you and enjoy your personality too. And so that's some of the things that I was talking about. I'd like to get my packet a little bit sooner than Friday, because Thursday and Friday mornings is when I usually do my studying, because after then things start going downhill. I get busy with other things and church and grandchildren and stuff, and I really like to be on top of everything when I come to a council meeting. I was just running through some of the things that was there, and I'm going to stop right there.
Okay.
I might say some things later.
Mr. McCleary awkwardly having to explain that normally when the packets show up a little late, that's normally my fault being late getting things in, so I will work harder on that. Let's go to Councilwoman Lawler. I apologize, Councilman Smith. I apologize. Precinct 3.
Not a problem, not a problem. As I've always said, Mr. McCleary, you and I both know, politics ain't personal. We're all just here to do a job and try to work on the same team. So that being said, I do enjoy our talks that you and I get the opportunity to have. I can't wait for Thursday afternoons in person again. Just to parrot off of Ms. Reed, your leadership style is something that we're not accustomed to. So probably we're going to have to get used to that. That being said, I'm not going to try to lay out anything bad here because it's not what we're here for. We're here to come together again as a team and try to make Albion successful again. The one thing I would like is more communication. You've got a beautiful form that you brought with you for laying out things at meetings, which, you know, to me has cleared a lot of things up. And I appreciate you bringing that forward and using that. But just keep up some good communication. Let us know what you need. Let us know when we are haranguing you too hard. You know, we've got to find our checks and balances. 6 months is, you know, especially with, you know, Mr. COVID jumping on the front door, did not help us at all. We're all fighting through this, and we've all just got to remain on the same team and remain communicative. With that, I will yield.
I'm glad you said Mr. instead of Mrs. Al.
You okay?
Councilwoman Love.
Marcola, you there?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Your turn.
Yeah.
Your turn.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. That was really I like what you said about us working together. That brings a lot of positive energy to this this special meeting that we're having tonight. So I agree with everyone that is coming together and just trying to make this work for the better and the greater good for Albion. I just want to say to Mr. McCleary, I think Albion is very unique, and I agree with Council Member Smith that we got to get accustomed to you, and you got to get accustomed to us, which I'm sure that you've had a lot of us. But so I mean, I just appreciate you coming at a hard time in Albion's community and giving us some type of hope, because we all had input on whether you should have had this job or not. So with that being said, I thank you. As far as I can't remember what number it was, but I whenever I see a city, I do ask them, you know, how's your day going? How is everything? And they say fine. And that lets me know, you know, without any doubt that the city manager and his employees are working together for the greater good. Nobody has anything unworthy to say about each other. So I'm happy about that. As far as like number 8, I didn't get to answer it because I had a different evaluation than maybe some people. But as far as number 8, and it's just my theory and the way that I've been hearing things, anybody is welcome to correct me on some things or help me out, I should say. As far as, like I said, number 8, I hear our city manager always saying that he needs to have a council decision made on some things. So it's just a sense that somebody's coming to him without coming to council and us meeting about it and being on one accord in order for him to get the task done. So that's one thing that I have heard that really kind of bothered me about the whole situation. So I do echo on some of my council members when they say that if you have any difficulties, to please let us know as a whole. Bring it to council and say, hey, look, you know, I need y'all help on this, you know, to get over this hump or whatever. This is how it's going to affect Albion, and give us some pros and some cons sometimes, you know, because we know that there are some. So with that being said, I just hope that when he says to us that he wants a council decision, that we listen to him. And thank you for even choosing Albion as your home, Mr. McCleary.
Thank you.
Spicer. You're on mute.
You hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I just have a couple of comments. I just want it noted that I certainly appreciate City Manager McCleary and the position he is in. He came to Albion in a not so great position and situation, and he has hit the ground running, and basically trying to lead and manage the city while being pulled in many different ways. And I understand that you have that experience in many, and that's the experience of many city managers, and I'm sure you can handle it. But to throw in this COVID-19 epidemic on top of it, and I'm sure it's made things very challenging for you. So I just want to say that, you know, I certainly appreciate your efforts, and I know that even though you've been here October, November, January, March, 5-6 months, the last month and a half has been basically dealing with the COVID virus. So essentially, you know, you really haven't had the full experience of the Albion city manager position because of what we're dealing with now, this epidemic. Also, I want to mention that I had a conversation with City Manager McCleary one of those days when I called up and say, hey, can I come see you this afternoon? And I'll only take 15 minutes, and it ended up being 40 minutes, but nonetheless, he said, oh, sure, come on in. And we talked about the face, him being in the community. And I'm not sure if, you know, he's made council aware of this or he's even stated this to council, but in that meeting, I asked him because I had saw the newsletter that the mayor, that is now coming from the mayor's office. And so I said, oh, when did that start? And he said that that's something that the mayor, and he, you know, I guess, initiated. And I thought it was a great thing, like a voice from, or a word from the mayor. And I told him I thought that newsletter, that bulletin was a great idea. And he informed me that per charter, you know, the mayor is the face of Albion. And so I asked, because I asked him about being out in the community and involved in different organizations. And that's when he said to me, you know, for a charter, and in his opinion, the mayor is the face of Albion. And that's why he is not out in the community as much. He indicated he didn't have a problem being out in the community, but he thought the mayor was the face of Albion. And he was like the number, you know, 2 person after that. So I appreciate that, because I know that, you know, we've had city managers in the past that, you know, did a lot of out in the community. And so I appreciate him taking a backseat to the mayor's position in that regard. However, you know, if that's something that the council deems that we want him to be out there and doing that, I think we need to direct him in that regard. And lastly, I just want to thank you, Mr. McCleary, for your actions in dealing with this COVID epidemic and keeping the council informed as much as possible as to what's going on. Otherwise, some of the things that are happening, we wouldn't know about. So I just want to thank you and tell you that I appreciate you very much.
Thank you.
Councilman Williamson, sir.
So I don't have a ton of feedback I want to give tonight necessarily. I think I was pretty thorough with my evaluation. I think one of the things that I would appreciate more of from you, Mr. McCleary, would be just more, I guess I'm not feeling as much communication as maybe some other people have been feeling. So I feel a little more communication with you would be a lot better. I'd have a much better understanding of what you're doing and where things are moving. I think I did hit on kind of the involvement in the community, which is interesting now because none of us can really be involved in the community as much as I would like to just be out and about right now. I would like to see more of it. And again, I think I said this to you too in side conversations. If not you, then who? So if it's not you that's going to be coming to some of the things in the community, it'd be really great to have City Hall representation because I always think the city can be a great partner with all of these different boards and nonprofits and people who are trying to shake things up in Albion and do big things, and we need the city to be a partner there. So if it's not you, which that's fine, it doesn't have to be you, you're in charge, who is going to represent the city to all these different places? And maybe there's probably a number of people depending on which department they're in, et cetera. You know, you run that. I just feel like the city needs to be more present. And then after all this is, I mean, it doesn't feel like this will ever be over, but after we figure out what the new normal is from all of this, I think it'll be imperative that the city is a partner there with everything going on. So that's really kind of that was really the crux of my evaluation. That's what I think. I think you do bring to the city some structure that they're not used to. And I think that's great. So I know that your leadership is not schizophrenic. It's not, I don't know what I'm going to get from one day to the next, you know, and coming in after the storm we were in a year and a few months ago, it has been quite nice and refreshing to have that structure. And I think that there needs to be some flexibility too in somewhere in there. So that's kind of that's been the crux of my feedback. I think that we can do some really great things. I think we need to see the city take the reins on some big projects with various groups, and I hope that you can do that. So that's, I mean, Mr. Mayor Darwin, that's really the crux of my feedback. I also think I don't want to meet with you weekly. I know there's a few of us that are probably meeting with you weekly or all the time or multiple times. I don't want to meet with you weekly. I bet I should set something up on somewhat of a regular basis just to maintain an understanding of what's going on better. I don't want to clog your schedule with useless meetings either. So I don't want to meet just to meet. So I will figure out some type of schedule and propose it to you just so that we can keep in what would be constant communication, because I think some of my concerns or even other members of council's concerns could be taken care of rather quickly or without any problem, you know, just with more communication. So that's all I have. Thank you for, again, I mean, there's something to be said to be the city manager after the last storm, okay? Like, I do not want to minimize that. We were a bit of a circus. All you had to do was Google Albion and you saw what was going on. And for someone to come in, a professional, and to want to take this job, that's a big thing. And I always think there's room for improvement. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Clark, I know you're on now, so you're up.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I didn't hear if there was anything else said before Lynn. So I don't know if I missed anything. My computer is struggling with the internet. I've got to figure out what's going on with my internet at home. But I mirror most of what I've heard from there. I do understand that the city manager, McCleary, is very much a procedural person. And I recognize that coming from other branches or other organizations where procedures were the main drive. I appreciate that. So we can run structurally sound. The same thing, the only thing I mirrored is a lot of people just wanted to see you more in the public. And I understand that the mayor is supposed to be the face of it, but I think because you're a newer person, just to be alongside with him, you know, for a period of time, it would be very helpful to the people in the city, just because Albion's like warm fuzzy like that. That's the best way I can say it. They want to touch and feel and see expressions and all of that to be able to move forward. I do appreciate your patience with us through the COVID epidemic that we're going through right now. I want to say thank you. I did see the city workers out doing some street cleaning right after we met the last time. So I know that was prompted by you. And I know that in the future that we will get used to each other's strategy, and we will be able to communicate better. Just like Shane said, I'm not a, and Dave can probably attest to this too, I'm not a have to meet with you person all the time. I'm kind of one that sits back in the background and listens and evaluates. But if you ever want to, if you feel that you need to talk to me, and if I feel that I need to talk to you, I will come to you. But most of the time, if you know, no news, you know the old saying, no news is good news. That's how I am. You know, if I don't really hear anything, that means everybody's satisfied in my precinct. I'm not hearing any complaints, and I don't have any complaints. So, but if you would like to meet with me for 10 or 15 minutes, we can do that, because that's probably what it'll boil down to, unless somebody has something to say. I am looking forward to us getting forward and getting some things taken care of that this community has wanted to see done. And I think that's the big thing. Once the community sees that we're taking care of some of the things that have been spoke about or talked about for the last 3 or 4 years, the dust will settle. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Counselor. And I just want to say real quick, Your Honor, I appreciate the fact that Albion is a touchy-feely community, because I do fit in very well with that. As some of you on the council know, because I hug you on a regular basis, I am a hugger. So well, thank you, Counselor.
So, Mr. McCleary, before we go into the next phase, well, it is the next phase, which is you have had the opportunity to read all of the feedback from each council member. Is there anything that did not make sense? Is there anything that you need clarification on, want clarification on, before we go any further?
I think the comments from council members were pretty straightforward. I think there are some things that I think we can continue to talk about and get further clarification on as we move along. You know, maybe some more background information that may help council members to understand some of the things that go on behind the scenes at City Hall and between interactions with me and my staff. That may be helpful. Your Honor, I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but in my response, what I wanted to share with the council was maybe some suggestions that I have on what would help me and my team to be more successful as we go forward. What we need and what I need from the city council as we move forward, so that we can talk more about some of these things at the 1-year evaluation. I did note that you know, there were some comments about the human resources functions and hiring, and the one thing that I wanted to note under that is that I think it's important that both I and my administration get a clear commitment and support from the City Council in developing a comprehensive and competitive classification and compensation plan, and support for low-cost creative ways to attract and retain employees. We are struggling in that regard. And, you know, as we move along with the Director of Public Services position, I can tell you we've advertised the position. We didn't receive any applications. We re-advertised and extended the deadline and published in another publication, trade publication. We've only received one application. I haven't reviewed that one yet. We just closed the process on Friday. But it is important that we look at all creative ways to move forward with our HR processes. As far as anticipating problems and developing effective solutions, I would say that one thing that would be helpful to me and my team is a commitment and support for administration to be innovative and creative and reasonable risk takers, and to be open to those ideas that may come to you from administration. That is very important. And my second day on the job, I met with my department directors. I outlined for them what my organizational expectations were. They were centered around several things: trust, innovation, a commitment to service, and some other things. And one of the things I tried to stress with my team is that it is important that I support them in being reasonable risk takers. That I understand and I support that there are going to be probably more failures than successes. But if we want a creative team and we want to encourage staff to be innovative, we have to allow them to have their fair share of failures. As far as achievement of council's adopted goals, I think what would be helpful for us is a commitment and support for realistic and achievable goals and priorities and deadlines. And I think some council members have already pointed out that maybe we need to take another look at the goals and priorities and maybe tweak them a little bit, especially with some of the issues we're facing right now with COVID-19 and some other things. And an understanding for the need our need to reestablish basic operations in the city before we move on to some of our higher aspirations. I know that the council understands that that administration has struggled for a while now, not only for the past 2 years, but there have been processes, operations, programs that have broken down over a longer period of time that we need to work hard to get back into place. And some of those things we need to focus on first before we can focus on other things. And so I welcome the opportunity to talk more about some of those issues and to work together in resolving those. As far as maintaining good relations with the community and media, again, and I appreciate this being brought up by council. The charter does set up the framework for us and what the roles and responsibilities of the city manager are, what the roles and responsibilities of the mayor and the city council are. And I just want to always make sure that the council understands that the city manager's role in this type of government is to manage the organization, manage our programs and services, make sure that that I have a team working with me in administration to provide the highest quality core municipal services to our citizens as possible, as cost effectively as possible. That has to be my primary focus. And right now, as I indicated, there are so many things internally that I'm working on that even though I do enjoy getting out and talking to people, I am struggling and my staff are struggling to try to rebuild basic processes. But the mayor is our chief executive officer. And the mayor, I know in many ways, enjoys the role of being the face of the community. I appreciate that. I welcome the opportunity to support the mayor in any way I can in that regard. But I do want to caution the council that it is a dangerous thing if we elevate the city manager to being more visible to our citizens than our city council is. The city manager should not be elevated to that level. I am a subordinate to you. I work for the city council, and it would make it very difficult for the city council to be able to have the proper oversight and control of the city manager if the city manager was elevated above the council. So I try to be respectful of that in how I operate as a city manager, to know what my role is and to know that that I have to always be accountable to the city council. I know that the council, you are always out there with your citizens, your constituents in your precincts and in the community generally, trying to gauge what the desires, the needs of the community are. And I so much look to the council to know what those needs and desires are and to come back with sound direction for administration, because my administration is here to carry out the will of the council as a body, as the elected representatives of the people, and ultimately carrying out the will of our citizens.
Before you go on, that was 6 items, and I didn't want to make sure that I've got them. So let me run back over them to make sure that I understood what you said, okay?
Sure.
Okay, so the first one was you want and need a commitment to an improved method of compensation, which could be an assortment of things. That was one. The second was anticipate. You're asking for a commitment by council to be open to ideas and accept some level of risk. Number 3, we need to acknowledge and be willing to support risk takers. Number 4, realistic and achievable goals with more realistic deadlines and not too many goals at any one time. We need to support and allow you the opportunity and your staff to reestablish basic operations. And as far as community and media relations, you are emphasizing the fact that you are subordinate to council and you are managing city operations and city staff and are trying hard not to get out in front of council and not to be in competition with council. Did I get all of those? Did I understand your meeting on all of those?
You absolutely did, Mayor.
Okay, so that was 6, and we will come back and talk about those. Do you have other than those 6, or can we stick with that?
I think some of the other ones I think I can share with council at a later time. I know that we are pressed for time to go into our regular session tonight, but thank you so much.
Okay, I'm gonna, before I respond to these, I'll open up if there's a council member that wishes to respond. We have about 20 minutes left. Councilman Williamson.
Hi, everyone. So I really appreciated Mr. McCleary's feedback here. I will put some pushback out there, just a little bit of pushback. I think that when I read through the evaluations, I saw that almost the entire council would like to see more of you or more of the city as a partner in the community, and I really hope that you're taking that to heart. Again, I understand your reticence in not wanting to upstage council to some degree, but you know, as far as being the person who runs the city and makes most of the decisions administratively for the city, you are the most well-positioned, or your team are the most well-positioned to be partners in the community on various projects. So again, I think there should be, and again, anyone else can correct me on council, but I think it was loud and clear through this process that there's something missing on that end. And I'm hoping I'm hearing a commitment to address it on your end. And so that I really wanted to make that clear before we move on.
We're waiting for you to commit that you are to acknowledge that the consensus of council based on commonality in the comments are you must be more visible, more engaged, more present in the community. To me, that was crystal clear with all of the evaluations. And so if we still have a difference of opinion in the definition of roles, that's something that we can work on. But I would absolutely echo what Councilman Williamson just said is, and I will add that I am 1000% convinced that through the recruitment process, through the interview process, and through the last 6 months, that desire in our interpretation that it's absolutely mandatory, must be part of your role, has been communicated and reinforced. So there's an area that we are looking for a commitment on your part to up your game in that area.
Definitely, Your Honor.
Can I say something?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Dave, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I am going to try to find my charter book. But I can remember we had 2 meetings with MML with previous people, and MML said to us that the mayor was the ceremonial person, that the city manager was the one that basically did explaining the running of the city stuff and the running of the city functions with the community. And that's kind of where I'm coming from, because at that time we had a thing where the mayor was trying to do everything and was upset with the city manager because the city manager was trying to do their job. Okay, so I'm just saying, like Vicki said, we need to all work together. But if the citizens is asking for something, we have to try to accommodate them too, because they're kind of the ones that's paying for the city to function properly. And you're such a nice person, and I know you can get out there and smile and tell them about any law or something that we are doing. I think a lot of their questioning is they're just questioning to try to get an understanding. And there are some things I know that I could not explain to them as well as you can. That's your job to know. It's my job to know too, but I'm not going to know it as in depth as you are. So that's what I'm saying about that.
I have one, Mayor.
Councilwoman Lawler.
Okay, thank you. The first thing, Mayor, that you wrote down that out of those 6 things that he said he wanted council to do, can you repeat the first one that you said? And I would like him to elaborate on that a little bit more, please.
Certainly. Mr. McCleary is asking for a commitment from council to support his efforts to improve the compensation that is offered to recruit and entice quality employees.
Okay, can I ask him to elaborate on that a little bit, if you don't mind?
Certainly.
Sure, Counselor. So in order to come up with a competitive classification and compensation package, we have to go through a whole process of determining each position, what the duties of each position are, classifying and grouping those positions according to the similar job duties or responsibilities, and then coming up with pay scales for each of those classifications or pay grades. That is that's one part of it, is coming up with a comprehensive classification and compensation plan. And then the other part of it is part of what I recommend is, because we know that we are struggling financially, we are limited in what we can do from a financial standpoint. So it becomes even more important for us to be creative in coming up with ways that we can make working for the city attractive to employees that are low or no cost. So we need to continue to identify creative ways that we can do that to make up for the limitations that we have from a financial standpoint, and that's what I was pointing out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can I speak?
Can I say
We have
one
about
more
10 minutes
thing?
left. And
Mine
so
won't take that
I
long.
think it's been too late out. There's nothing that I think, if there's any member of council that's diametrically opposed to any of those 6 things, our city manager is asking for a commitment on our part. He's not asking us to rubber stamp anything. Open to things, that's reasonable, that's appropriate. I don't know of anything that you've said that I can't think that anybody would object to those things. What has to come with that is, to be honest, is more communication. And I'll give you an example. You're the first one with the compensation, and you went into a little bit of detail about you advertised, didn't get any takers, and that's not, it needs to be more attractive. And so I would say that clearly was the number one issue that most of council identified was in the area of hiring. 6 months into the job, in the hiring efforts that you've been involved in, not a single new face working for the city, no start dates with new people. And I think most of us, I think it was Councilwoman Reed that said, we're not going to move forward and make great progress until key positions are filled with effective, efficient employees that are in permanent status.
Right.
In general, the council is not happy that it's been 6 months and those positions yet are not filled. I know you're working on them. So going hand in hand with being open to improved compensation is, you're going to have to communicate more with the obstacles that you're running in so that we have a better understanding that, hey, I'm trying, I'm spinning my wheels here, I'm not having any luck. We'll be much more open to support your recommendations. There were comments, I know I made comments that I would like to see you take more risks, so you're not going to have any pushback on me on taking risk. And I understand if you take risks, there's going to be things that are going to be unsuccessful. That's part of trying to improve things. The engagement in the community, that is just absolutely essential. The community expects it, council expects it. We believe it's part of your job. And you will not be effective if you're not. And if you're not effective, the city won't be effective. I don't relish being in the public eye, but that's what I signed up for, and I'm doing that. But you're the chief operating officer, and so when people look at services and things, they're looking at you. You're here long term. I'm come and gone. You need, in my opinion, and I gathered comments from the other council members, more engaged, more observant, more hands-on. Okay, and one quick example, if you step outside of City Hall or you pull up to City Hall, the 2 things that jump out, we still have a Christmas decoration hanging on the flagpole. Last week, I think it's been 10 days now, the governor ordered all US flags and the Michigan flag flown at half-mast. It may have gotten lost, I sent you a text, but when we pull up to City Hall and those blatantly obvious things, to me that says you got to get out and be more involved. You've got to be going around the city looking at things. And going back and making sure that the people that are in those acting positions, more so than the permanent, Chief Kip, Tom, me, John Tracy, that have been here in those positions for a long time, it's the ones that don't have the experience supervising. You're going to have to give them more coaching, more hands-on. And then the quality of services and things, they're not where they need to be. You've got to figure out how to manage it so that the quality improves. And I can give you examples of that, but I don't want to monopolize the rest of the time. I'll open it up for you, Mr. McCleary, to respond to that or add something, and then we'll go around with the council members.
Your Honor, I think you bring up very good points, and I do take those things to heart. And I think over time, the council will. I think you'll see. I think you'll feel much more comfortable after we have a little more time working together.
Can I ask where it was?
I was
can you see my hand?
thinking you're going to see improvement, but you didn't go there. And we are looking for improvement. So
I thought that's what my message was.
Okay, then I misinterpreted. Thank you very much. Okay. Let me in the room real quick here. Councilwoman Clark, I can't see you. Do you have comments?
Oh. Yes. I think going forward, when we say that we want you to go ahead and take the risk and things like that, I think that's a positive thing for council. I know in the past that has been a place that has caused people to be a little bit more stagnant or leery about moving things or getting pushback. So I think as a council that's showing growth in us, that all of us are saying the same thing, that, we want that from you. So that's a positive thing. And the direction, as Mayor Dave was saying, is, that's something that we understand that you're working on. But that's kind of some of the things that the city, the community push back on us about in every area, about what they see and what they don't see. So it would be really, really helpful for you to know those things. And and I don't like to be the police, but when they push, especially in my area, there's a lot of pushback right now. I just haven't been very vocal. I've been sort of passively saying what they're saying without being overly aggressive, because I understand what's going on in the council, and I tell them, I address them, and I'm bringing them forward. So as long as you move forward with those things and we can see them, and I think we'll be fine. Because I'm just happy to hear everybody's willing to let you take the risk. I really am.
Thank you, Counselor.
Can I ask a question? Okay. Darwin, how many where do we usually advertise for workers?
It depends on the job that we're advertising for. Usually the Michigan Municipal League is our main source for advertisements, because here in Michigan, most other municipal employees, that's where they look for job opportunities. But it depends on the position. For example, the DPS director position, we also advertise with the Michigan Waterworks Association, Michigan Public Works Association, to try to reach out to people who are in the public works trade, to try to reach out further to try to attract candidates. So it depends on the type of job that it is. We're also working to try to identify sources to reach out to minority populations more. Whether it's the Black community, Hispanic community, our religious minorities, the LGBTQ community. We are trying to identify point sources where we can try to reach out to those populations. That has been a little bit of a struggle to try to find publications that would have a much wider reach, but we are working on those.
Okay.
Councilman Smith, we're going to run over, but we still need to do public comment. But Councilman Smith, do you have comments? Councilwoman Lawler, do you have final comments?
No, thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman Spicer?
No, thank you, City Manager McCleary, for your efforts and assistance. Thank you.
Councilman Williamson? Okay.
I have nothing further to add. Thanks.
Okay, we'll go into public comments. If there's public comments, please state your name and address so we know who we're talking with. I'll remind for public comments, stick to the issues or whatever. It's not time for personal attacks or so on and so forth. And so, Chief, do we have anybody with public comments this evening?
Garrett Brown.
Okay, Mr. Brown.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I want to thank Manager McCleary for his hard work. Having worked with 4 different city managers, he's the most qualified, and his certification through the ICMA was really impressive to me, considering that that's like the professional body for public administrators. I think the 2 things I want to say is, one, and whether this means calling Attorney Smith back in, but I think the council really has to really kind of understand the difference between their policymaking role and Mr. McCleary's administrative role. There were some comments made during the meeting about letting the manager know that there's a consensus in the evaluations, but a consensus does not equal a vote. And that's actually what the charter and the council rules require: a vote on a motion, an ordinance, even a motion, but there has to be a vote to give a directive to the manager. And I think that addressing one of the other concerns was this ongoing concern about community involvement. I think Councilmember Williamson called it partnership, but I think unfortunately a lot of times in the history here in Albion, that's been code for being at the right groups with the right people who are moneyed or connected. And so that's the concern I have, is because just because we've had managers that have been on the chamber board or the Rotary or different kinds of organizations, but that doesn't mean that those are reflective of the entire community. So I think that what Mr. McCleary was saying is the council is the grassroots direct connection to voters and citizens. So when they have concerns, they can take administrative concerns to the manager, but really, it really shouldn't be the manager's responsibility to represent the city at all meetings, or to be unquestioningly loyal to ARC or ACE or whatever. So what I think going forward, I think the council really needs to go back over that policymaking role. And the last thing, there was a comment in one of the evaluations talking about one of the council members, one of the council meetings that was not filmed. And I'm the one who wrote that email to the council. I wasn't expecting that to be the responsibility of the manager, because the council by charter sets the bounds and the rules for its own meetings. So that's not something that the manager is responsible for. So I didn't want to use my email to be used as an attack on the manager. So thank you.
Okay, so we're going to wrap this up. I think that having consensus of council and making sure that the city manager understands where we're all coming from,
Mr. Mayor,
is absolutely valuable and appropriate. This is a study session. There is no decision on the agenda tonight. And so I think that this was very productive. As the days go ahead, we'll hope that you get a chance to meet with all of the council members and follow up with any other questions that you have. So If anybody has the last, it looks like
We have two more public comments.
Councilman Smith.
I was just going to say the chief is saying we have more public comments.
Right.
Oh, thank you. Next.
Mr. Hasman, go ahead.
Thank you, Chief Kip. Mayor Dave, Mr. City Manager, City Council people in Albion, thanks for allowing me to participate and listen to this. I appreciate the thoughtfulness of all your input, and I'm confident that the input you've given one another will be helpful in resolving this issue. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Representative Hosmer.
You're welcome.
Do we have other public comments this evening?
Yeah, Sonia Brown, 713 Orchard Drive. I just want to commend City Manager McCleary for a job well done thus far. I read over the evaluations and I watched the meeting, and I think it boils down to understanding your roles. Attorney Scott Smith did a great job with council, really explaining the scope of our roles. And that meeting, it should still be on YouTube. So I would suggest you all, if we have nothing but time right now, to take a look at that meeting, or even consider bringing him or another consultant in so you all can, as a collective group, give specific examples and concerns to get a concrete answer and guidance in moving forward. A consensus of council is not council setting a policy. So, but you probably need to hear that from a consultant, because, you know, they'll be more believable to some. I also want to ask council to consider actually taking action on the recommendation from Attorney Gardner and his investigation regarding contacting the state police and the city leaks. I haven't heard any conversation around that. I'd also urge council to take action on the allegations of charter violations, code of ethics violations, and election law by the mayor and 2 additional council members.
Ms. Brown, you will not impugn an individual, their personality, their motivation, or their motives. Do not make it personal. This is not the platform for that. You may continue.
I am an adult. Do not talk to me like I'm a child. And I'll ask council to consider taking those actions and to contacting a consultant. You may also want to seek some kind of training on communicating with the public in a respectful manner, even when you're not in agreement with what's being said. Yeah, that's pretty much all. Well, I have one more comment too. There was a comment I heard after Councilman Smith, and I'm just going to ask because my time's running out. Ms. Reed, please play this meeting back, because I think it was you that was speaking. You may want to clear up what I thought was heard on the audio. Thank you.
Any other public comments this evening? Seeing none, hearing none, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, support. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Are we sign out of this one and back into the next one? Or we
Yeah.
stay?
Yes.
Okay.
Sign out.
Yep. I'll be down to help you, Jeanette.
Thank you.